If that vow is finished before midnight, I lose the throne. Alpha King Damon Ashford said it from inside a wooden relic crate, which was not where Clara Wren expected to hear a royal confession. 3 seconds earlier, she had been pushing that crate across the marble floor of Moonridge Hall with both hands, trying not to think about the fact that the most powerful werewolf in North America was folded inside like a badly packed winter coat. The banquet around her glittered with white roses, silver candles, crystal glasses, and enough old money-packed judgment to choke a horse. 28 eligible brides sat under the chandeliers, each one smiling like she had been trained by a publicist and a priest. 9 council elders watched from the raised table. 14 royal guards stood along the walls, pretending not to notice that the crate labeled extremely fragile lunar relic had just cursed softly when its corner hit a chair. Clara kept walking. "Restoration emergency," she announced, in the calm voice she used when customers asked if a cracked 200-year-old wolf idol could be fixed by Friday. Counselor Victor Harlan narrowed his pale eyes. "Miss Wren, why is that crate moving?" From inside came a quiet thump. Clara placed one hand on the lid. "Old wood settles." Another thump. Lower this time. Very annoyed. "Royal wood, apparently," she added. A few servants looked down to hide their faces. At the head of the hall, Lady Serena Harlan stood beside the empty wedding dais, wearing a pearl-white gown and the steady expression of a woman who knew the room had been built to choose her. The Moonridge Pact believed in hierarchy. Alpha above Beta, Beta above Guard, noble blood above working hands. And an unbonded Omega relic restorer from the Portland district was supposed to know exactly where she belonged, which was usually near the service door and away from history. Clara knew that. She also knew the silver moon reliquary inside this crate had burned hot against her bare wrist the moment Damon climbed in. Not warm. Not metal left in the sun warm. Mate-bond warm. Dangerous warm. The kind of warmth that made her wolf sense, small and usually quiet, lift its head like it had heard a name spoken in another room. She tightened her gloves and kept pushing. "Stop her," Victor said. The guard shifted. Damon went still inside the crate. Clara felt it through the wood, that sudden royal silence, heavy as a storm cloud. Then his voice came low enough only she could hear. "Don't let them take the reliquary." "Not me." "The reliquary." Of course. Even hiding in a box, the man managed to prioritize duty. Clara looked at the silver crest stamped on the crate latch. For half a breath, the metal flashed beneath her glove, and a memory slipped through anyway. Damon standing alone before dawn, signing nothing, refusing someone, whispering, "My wolf does not consent." Clara's chest tightened. The wedding wasn't a wedding. It was a trap with flowers. She turned back to the hall and gave Victor Harlan her most professional smile. "Counselor, unless you want 500 years of royal oath work cracking in front of every pack livestream, I suggest you move your shoes." 6 hours before Alpha King Damon Ashford became the most valuable item Clara Wren had ever transported, she was standing in her little restoration shop with a cracked moon seal in one hand and a customer telling her she had such delicate omega fingers. Clara looked at the man over the rim of her glasses and said, "That sentence got worse every word you added." The shop went quiet in that nice, small business way where everyone suddenly became very interested in receipts. Wren and Vale Restoration sat between a coffee place, a dry cleaner, and a bookstore that sold more candles than books. From the street, it looked ordinary. Inside, it smelled like lemon oil, old paper, silver polish, and dust that had opinions. Pack families from all over the Northwest brought Clara their relics when something ancient broke and no one wanted to admit their grandmother's sacred oath bowl had been used for salsa during a football game. Clara wore thin gray gloves every minute she worked. People thought it was because ancient relics were fragile. That was only half true. The other half was that memories clung to old things like smoke and curtains. If Clara touched bare metal, bone, carved wood, or oath stone, she saw what the object remembered last. Not everything. Not on command. Just flashes. A hand shaking over a signature. A room full of fear. Someone whispering a promise they meant to break. Her mother had called it a gift. Clara called it a migraine with historical context. At 11:17 that morning, a black palace vehicle pulled up outside, blocking 2 parking spots and making the barista next door spill oat milk. A royal courier stepped in with a cream envelope sealed in silver wax. "Miss Clara Wren?" he asked. "Depends how expensive this is going to be," Clara said. He did not smile. Palace people rarely did. They acted like humor was a zoning violation. The letter ordered her to Moonridge Hall to inspect the Silver Moon reliquary before the royal wedding banquet. Ordered, not invited. Clara read the sentence twice. "They know I am a restoration specialist, right? Not a wedding planner, not a priest, not emotional support for rich werewolves." The courier blinked. The council requested discretion. That is always how trouble introduces itself. She packed her tools anyway, because Wren existed, and so did royal penalties. At Moonridge Hall, security checked her bag 3 times, then looked offended when the most dangerous thing inside was a brass cleaning brush. The reliquary waited in a private preparation room, silver and black under white lights. It was smaller than she expected, about the size of a shoebox, carved with wolves circling a crescent moon. The moment she lifted it, one glove split near her thumb. Bare skin touched silver. The room vanished. Clara saw an alpha king from another century standing before a council fire, his voice raw but steady. No king may be bound without his wolf's consent. Then another flash came, newer and colder. A hand scraping fresh marks into an old seal. A man saying, "By midnight, he will belong to us." Clara came back gasping, one hand gripping the table. On the relic lid, beneath layers of polish, she saw the truth in a line no one else had bothered to read. The wedding vow was not tradition. It was a cage. Clara should have left the second she understood the reliquary was a trap. That would have been smart. That would have been healthy. That would also have required the palace to let a low-ranked Omega walk out with a royal secret before lunch, and Clara had never known powerful people to be that emotionally generous. By 6 o'clock, Moonridge Hall had turned into a wedding banquet with teeth. The chandeliers were bright enough to make everyone look expensive and slightly unreal. White roses climbed the pillars. Silver cameras floated near the ceiling, sending the ceremony to every allied pack from Seattle to Boston. Guards in black suits stood along the walls with the kind of stillness that said they had been trained to hear a lie from 30 feet away. Clara entered through the restoration door, carrying the Silver Moon reliquary on a velvet tray. Nobody announced her name. That was fine. Announcing an Omega restorer in a room full of pack royalty would have confused the furniture. At the far end of the hall, Alpha King Damon Ashford stood beneath the moon seal arch. Clara had seen him on state broadcasts before, usually looking like bad news in a tailored coat. In person, he was worse. Not prettier, not softer. Worse because he looked tired under all that control, like a man holding up a mountain and refusing to mention his arms hurt. Beside him stood Serena Harlan in pearl-white silk, elegant and calm, her hand resting near his sleeve without quite touching him. Counselor Victor Harlan watched from the first table, smiling as if the whole night was a receipt he planned to cash. A steward stopped Clara near the dais. "The reliquary goes beside the vow parchment. That parchment has fresh ink," Clara said before she could stop herself. The steward blinked. "Excuse me." "Nothing. Restoration people notice weird things. It is why we are so fun at parties." Damon's eyes shifted to her. Just once. That was all. The room did not change, but Clara did. The bond in her chest stirred again, quiet and impossible, like a match lighting behind her ribs. Damon's jaw tightened. His wolf had felt it too. Serena noticed the look between them and smiled harder, which somehow made her look less happy. Clara stepped forward to place the reliquary on the table. A nervous guest bumped her elbow. The tray tilted. Damon reached out, fast and controlled, catching the edge before the silver hit marble. His cufflink brushed Clara's bare wrist where her glove had torn earlier. The banquet vanished. She saw Damon at dawn in a locked study, his coat off, sleeves rolled, 5 escape routes drawn across a floor plan. West door blocked. Service stairs guarded. Garage sealed. Rooftop watched. Restoration corridor marked with a question mark. Then his voice in the memory, low and furious. "I will not give my wolf to a contract he rejects." Clara snapped back into the noise of the hall. Damon was still holding the tray. His hand was steady. His eyes were not. Victor rose slowly. "Is there a problem, Your Majesty?" Damon released the tray and looked at Clara like a drowning man refusing to call it drowning. "Miss Wren," he said quietly, "how large is your transport crate?" Clara looked at Damon Ashford. then at the transport crate waiting near the restoration corridor, then back at the Alpha King, whose entire political future apparently depended on the dimensions of antique shipping equipment. Large enough for the reliquary, she said. Not large enough for your shoulders, your crown, and whatever emotional damage this room has caused. Damon did not smile, but something near his eyes almost tried. Can it be made larger? Your Majesty, it is a crate, not a miracle. Serena's voice drifted in from behind them, sweet enough to ruin coffee. Is something wrong with the relic? Clara turned with the velvet tray still in her hands. Every face at the banquet had angled toward her now. Council elders, noble brides, guards, cameras, servants. Pack hierarchy did not need a spotlight. It carried its own weather. An Omega restorer questioning a royal ceremony was already one step from scandal. An Omega restorer helping the Alpha King disappear would require a new word. Clara set the reliquary down beside the vow parchment and let her gaze fall to the tall centerpiece on the bridal table. It was a black stone urn filled with white lilies. She recognized the carvings at once and nearly laughed, which would have been unprofessional and probably treason-adjacent. Before anyone signs anything, she said clearly, you may want to remove that from the wedding table. Victor Harlan's eyes narrowed. And why is that? Clara pointed with one gloved finger. Because that is not a fertility vase. That is a 17th century trader urn, traditionally used to hold the ashes of people who broke pack oaths. The hall went so quiet the champagne bubbles sounded nervous. One bride pulled her chair back. Another whispered, ashes? Serena's perfect smile cracked at the corner. That is absurd. Clara shrugged. Could be worse. Someone put lilies in it. The old Moonridge families considered lilies an invitation for ghosts to complain. That did it. 3 elders stood at once. A server dropped a spoon. Half the noble brides leaned away from the urn like betrayal might be contagious. While every important person in the room decided whether they had been seated beside cursed table decor, Damon moved. Fast, silent, controlled. Clara caught the edge of his sleeve and guided him behind the hanging restoration screens near the service arch. This way, she whispered. Do not speak unless you can sound like furniture. I am not convinced furniture sounds like anything. Then this should be easy for you. The restoration corridor smelled like wax, cold stone, and panic wearing expensive shoes. Damon ducked under a low beam and still hit it with his crown. The tiny metallic click echoed down the hall. Clara closed her eyes. The crown has to go. This crown has survived 3 succession wars. Congratulations. It is about to lose to a doorframe. He removed it with the grim dignity of a man surrendering to architecture. The crate waited beside the freight lift. Clara opened the lid. Damon looked inside, then at her. Absolutely not. Footsteps sounded behind them. Victor's voice cut through the hall. Find the king. Clara lifted one eyebrow. Damon exhaled once, climbed into the crate, and folded himself between velvet padding and 500 years of royal symbolism. Clara lowered the lid. From inside came a muffled voice. Miss Wren. Yes. If we survive this, I am revising palace storage policy. She grabbed the handles and pushed. Great. Start with wider crates. By 9 the next morning, Clara had decided that hiding an Alpha King in a relic crate was bad for business, bad for blood pressure, and terrible for the lower back. She was standing behind the counter at Wren and Vale Restoration, icing her shoulder with a bag of frozen peas from the break room, when the bell over the front door rang. She looked up and found Damon Ashford in her shop wearing a dark coat instead of a crown, with 2 royal guards waiting on the sidewalk like very expensive parking meters. For 1 second, nobody spoke. Then Clara lowered the peas. We are closed to people who spent last night inside my shipping inventory. Damon glanced around the shop. Old clocks, cracked moon seals, treaty cups, wolf charms, a framed certificate that said Clara was licensed in historical conservation and not, technically, felony transportation. Your sign says open. My sign did not know you were coming. He placed one gray glove on the counter. Her glove. The one she had lost in the restoration corridor when the freight lift jammed, and the crate had made a noise that every guard in the Western Hall had pretended not to hear. You dropped this. Clara took it without touching his fingers. The mate bond still stirred anyway, quiet and stubborn, like a dog waiting outside a locked door. Damon felt it too. She saw it in the slight pause before he pulled his hand back. Control suited him. Unfortunately for him, so did being caught off guard. "Did you come all this way to return laundry?" she asked. "No." He reached into his coat and set a ring on the counter. Black silver, heavy, carved with the Ashford wolf crest. The air in the shop seemed to lean away from it. Clara stopped joking. "That is not jewelry." "The Ashford oath ring," Damon said. "It confirms royal covenant signatures. If the wedding vow had been completed, the ring would have sealed it before the council and every allied pack." Clara stared at it. "And you brought it to the woman who just smuggled you out of your own banquet. You were the only person in that room who saw the cage." That landed harder than she wanted it to. Clara put on her repaired glove, then picked up the ring with brass tongs and carried it to the workbench. Under magnification, the seal lines looked old at first. Then she saw it. A groove inside the crest, too clean, too recent. Someone had carved a new command into an old symbol. "This was altered," she said. Damon's expression did not change, which meant it changed plenty on the inside. "How altered?" Clara removed one glove. "Enough that you should sit down." "I do not need to sit. That is what people say right before they become furniture." She touched the ring with bare skin. Cold rushed up her arm. The shop vanished. She saw a council chamber at midnight. Victor Harlan pressing the ring into black wax. She saw a parchment line shifting under heat. She saw 3 border pack seals sliding from Damon's authority to Harlan control if Damon refused the bride chosen for him. Then came one more flash, softer and worse. A woman with Clara's eyes standing in the royal archive, whispering, "They erased my name." Clara pulled back so fast the stool scraped behind her. Damon stepped forward but stopped before reaching for her. Good. He was learning. Clara looked at the ring, then at him. "Your wedding was not just about marriage." Her voice sounded too calm for how badly her hands wanted to shake. "It was a transfer of power. And somehow my family is buried inside it." Clara did not let Damon touch the ring again until she had wrapped it in clean linen, locked it under a glass dome, and placed a sticky note beside it that said, "Cursed until proven otherwise." Damon read the note and looked at her. "Is that an official restoration term?" "It is in this shop." By noon, Wren and Vale Restoration had become the least glamorous war room in pack history. A whiteboard stood between shelves of cracked oath bowls and antique wolf charms. Clara had drawn lines from the Ashford oath ring to the Silver Moon reliquary, then to a missing wedding chain, an old witness cup, and a territory map from the Royal Archive. Damon stood beside her with his sleeves rolled up, looking deeply out of place and annoyingly useful. He had removed his coat after Clara told him he was looming over the furniture. "I do not loom," he said. "You are 6'3" and emotionally repressed. You loom by weather pattern." One of the guards outside coughed so hard it became a personal problem. Damon ignored him, but Clara saw the corner of his mouth almost move. Almost was becoming dangerous. The mate bond had not gone quiet since the ring memory. It sat between them like a third person in the room, patient and rude. When Damon reached across the table to move the territory map, his wrist brushed the edge of Clara's glove, and the bond warmed under her ribs. His hand stopped for half a second. Not long enough for anyone else to notice. Long enough for Clara to notice everything. "We keep working," she said. "I was not suggesting otherwise. Your wolf was." His eyes lifted. "You can feel that." Clara swallowed and looked back at the map. "I can feel enough." That was the problem. She could feel the steadiness of him under the crown, the exhaustion behind his control, and the quiet, furious loyalty of a wolf that had rejected the wedding vow before Damon ever found the words. It would have been easier if he had been arrogant. Men like that were simple. You handed them their ego and a bill. Damon was not simple. He was a king trying not to become a cage. Clara opened the old witness cup next. Bare fingers to silver. A flash hit her. Victor Harlan in the Royal Archive, sliding a document beneath a false bottom. Serena standing in the doorway, pale and silent, not cruel, not innocent, just trapped in the kind of family that called ambition duty. Then Clara saw the woman with her eyes again. Younger than her mother would have been now. Brown hair pinned back. Omega collar hidden under a librarian's scarf. She pressed a hand to the archive door and whispered, "Clara, one day they will need what they buried." Clara snapped back with a breath that shook once before she caught it. Damon moved toward her, then stopped himself. "Good again. Painfully good." "What did you see?" he asked. Clara stared at the cup. "My mother was not just a restorer." Before Damon could answer, His phone buzzed on the table. Then the guard's phone. Then Clara's old shop computer began pinging with news alerts. Damon picked up his phone, and his face went cold in a way that made the room feel smaller. Clara already knew. Victor had moved first. Across every pack channel, the headline was spreading. Low-ranked Omega accused of using forbidden relic magic to influence Alpha King. The first thing Damon did after reading the headline was not shout, which told Clara the situation had become officially terrible. Shouting was for people who still believed noise could help. Damon went quiet, and the shop seemed to shrink around him. Outside, the two royal guards straightened as another Black Palace vehicle pulled up to the curb, then another behind it. Clara looked through the front window at the tinted glass and said, "Please tell me those are not here for me." Damon slid his phone into his pocket. "They are here because Victor just turned you into a public threat. Funny, because 10 minutes ago, I was a small business owner with a frozen pea shoulder injury." "Clara." He said her name softly, and that was worse than if he had used his king voice. "Every pack channel has your face. They are calling your gift forbidden. The council can demand containment before the hearing." "Containment," she repeated. "That is a cute word. Very clean. Sounds better than locking up the Omega until the important men finish deciding what she is allowed to be." His jaw tightened. "That is not what I am doing." A royal officer entered without knocking, carrying a silver bracelet on a velvet pad. Clara stared at it. It was beautiful in the way a locked gate could be beautiful if someone polished it long enough. Damon took the bracelet from the officer before Clara could speak. "Royal protection," he said. "Temporary. It places you under my authority until the public hearing." Clara laughed once, without humor. "Your authority. It prevents Victor from arresting you. And prevents me from leaving." Damon did not answer fast enough. There it was. The truth, dressed up for court. Clara looked at the man who had trusted her with a crown, a relic, and the secret fear under his duty, and felt something inside her pull tight enough to hurt. The mate bond warmed, then twisted, not breaking, not fading, just reminding her that closeness did not always mean safety. Damon stepped closer, holding the bracelet like he hated it. "I am trying to keep you alive in that room. Then let me walk into it on my own feet. They will tear your testimony apart. They can try. I have been underestimated by rich werewolves since I was tall enough to reach a display case." His eyes flashed, not with anger at her, but with fear he did not know how to set down. "I cannot lose you before I understand what this is." That stopped her for half a breath. It would have been so easy to soften. He looked less like a king then, and more like a man standing in front of a door he had already failed to open. But Clara had spent her life touching objects that remembered what powerful people called love when they meant ownership. She took the bracelet from his hand, closed his fingers around it, and pushed it gently back toward his chest. "This is the part where you decide whether I am your witness or your property." Damon went still. The words hit him cleanly. Good. They needed to. Clara grabbed her tool case, the wrapped oath ring, and the witness cup. At the door, Serena Harlan stepped out from beside the second palace vehicle, pale under her perfect makeup. The guards moved, but she lifted one hand. "I am not here to stop her." She held out a pearl hairpin shaped like a crescent moon. "My uncle keeps a private archive drawer behind the council chamber. This opens it." Clara took it carefully. Serena looked toward the street, then back at Damon. "For what it is worth, Your Majesty, I never wanted to be a leash either." Then she walked away before anyone could thank her and make it embarrassing. Clara looked at Damon one last time. "Do not carry me into the hearing," she said. "Make room for me to stand." Then she stepped into the daylight with every camera in Moonridge waiting for her. Moonridge Hall looked different when Clara walked in through the front doors, instead of smuggling a king out through the back. The white roses were gone. The wedding tables had been cleared. In their place stood a half-circle of council seats beneath the silver moon seal, with cameras floating near the ceiling and every allied pack watching live. Clara could feel the room sorting her before she reached the center. Omega, low-ranked. No family crest. No pack title. Tool case in one hand, relic evidence in the other, walking like she had not spent the morning being called a danger by people who thought history belonged to whoever shouted oldest. Victor Harlan rose from his chair in a charcoal suit, silver hair perfect, face calm enough to be expensive. "Miss Wren," he said, "you stand accused of using forbidden relic magic to influence the Alpha King, disrupt a royal covenant, and threaten the stability of 3 border packs. Clara set her tool case on the evidence table. "Good afternoon to you too, Counselor." A low ripple moved through the room. Damon stood to the side of the dais, not on the throne. That mattered. He had left the center open. His face was unreadable, but his wolf pressed against the bond, steady and awake, like a hand held close without closing around hers. Victor gestured toward the cameras. "You admit you touched royal relics without authorization." Clara opened the case and took out the linen-wrapped oath ring. "I admit I did my job after your office summoned me." "You are not trained in covenant law." "No, I am trained in material truth." "Lucky for us, ink is less loyal than politicians." Someone at the guard line made a sound and swallowed it. Victor's smile thinned. Clara laid out the oath ring, the silver moon reliquary, the witness cup, and Serena's pearl hairpin. Then she placed the forged covenant beneath a warming glass from her kit. "This document was presented as a 200-year continuation clause." "It is not." Victor leaned forward. "Careful, Miss Wren." Damon's voice cut across the chamber, quiet but final. "She has the floor." It was not rescue. It was space. Clara let herself breathe once. The warming glass glowed amber. Slowly, the old-looking ink began to separate. The top layer stayed brown and faded. Underneath, new lines appeared sharp and dark, hidden between the ceremonial wording. A murmur rose as the cameras zoomed in. "Transfer of Border Command authority to the Harlan line upon refusal or delay of chosen bride." Clara looked up. "That is not a wedding vow. That is a power grab wearing flowers." Victor stood so fast his chair scraped marble. "This is manipulation." "No," Clara said, lifting the witness cup. "This is restoration." She touched bare fingers to silver. The room tilted, and the cup answered. Its memory spread through the moon's seal, not as magic bright enough to dazzle, but as sound and shadow. Victor in the archive, pressing the Ashford ring into black wax. Serena silent in the doorway. Clara's mother whispering from behind a shelf. "They erased my name because I found the first forgery." The chamber froze. Serena stepped forward, pale but steady. "That memory is true." Victor turned on her. "Serena." She lifted her chin. "I was raised to be useful. I am finished being quiet." Damon finally moved, stepping beside Clara, not in front of her. "Counselor Victor Harlan," he said, "you used royal law to bind your king, your niece, and 3 packs to a lie." Clara held the reliquary with both hands as its lid opened by itself, releasing one last voice from a dead Alpha King. A throne held by a lie is already empty. This time, no one in Moonridge Hall looked at Clara like she belonged near the service door. The silence after the dead king's voice faded was not empty. It was full of every person in Moonridge Hall understanding, all at once, that power could wear a crown, a council robe, or a perfect smile, and still be rotten underneath if no one was allowed to question it. Victor Harlan did not shout. Men like him rarely did when the room stopped belonging to them. He adjusted his cuff, looked at the guards, then at Damon, as if old habits might still obey. They did not. Damon gave one nod, and the royal guard stepped forward with quiet, professional finality. No drama, no spectacle, just the sound of authority changing hands. Serena watched her uncle lose the future he had tried to build through her name. Her face was pale, but her shoulders were straight. When Damon turned to her, she spoke first. "I withdraw from the covenant freely, before the council and every allied pack." Her voice shook once, then steadied. "I was told duty meant becoming useful to powerful men. I would like to learn what duty means when it starts with honesty." For the first time all day, Damon bowed to her. Not deeply, not theatrically. "Enough." "Then let that be entered into the record." The council clerk, who looked like he had aged for years since breakfast, wrote it down with trembling speed. Damon stepped beneath the moon's seal, but he did not sit on the throne. He looked at the cameras, the elders, the guards, the pack representatives, and finally Clara. "The forged covenant is void," he said. "The border packs will return to independent command until new oaths are negotiated in public. Every council seal from the last 30 years will be reviewed by neutral witnesses. And from this day forward, no Omega, no healer, no restorer, no citizen with a rare gift will be forced into crown service, confinement, or silence under the excuse of protection." Clara felt the words settle through the room like rain on dry ground. Not perfect, Not enough to fix every old wrong. But real. Real had weight. Later, after Victor was stripped of council authority and removed from Moonridge under guard, after Serena left with her own name finally feeling like hers, after the cameras shut off and the hall lost its appetite for judgment, Damon found Clara outside her shop. The evening smelled like wet pavement, coffee, and cold metal. He stood at the curb holding the silver moon reliquary, which now had a crooked latch because history had survived betrayal but not being shoved into a freight lift. Clara looked at it, then at him. You broke it. It was damaged during a royal emergency. That is a very king-shaped way to say you broke it. His mouth softened. Not quite a smile, but closer than the man she had met inside a crate. Can it be restored? Clara took the reliquary from him. Their fingers brushed. The mate bond warmed. Gentle this time. Not demanding, not trapping, just present. Damon felt it too. He did not reach for her. He did not claim it. He simply said, "My wolf knew before I did. I was the slow one." Clara looked through the shop window at the workbench, the tools, the gloves, the life she had built from other people's broken things. Slow can be forgiven, she said. Controlling takes more work. Damon nodded. Then I will work. That mattered more than a perfect apology. Kings made promises easily. Men kept them in small, inconvenient ways. So Clara unlocked the shop, handed him a polishing cloth, and pointed to the reliquary latch. Start there. Damon Ashford, Alpha King of Moonridge, took off his coat, rolled up his sleeves, and sat at her workbench like a man learning that leadership was not always standing above people. Sometimes it was sitting beside them, fixing what your power had helped break. Months later, a new brass plate appeared beneath the restored reliquary in Moonridge Hall. It read, "Restored by Clara Wren, independent witness of pack oaths." People came from 3 states to see it. Some came for the scandal. Some came for the romance they whispered about, but never fully understood. Clara liked to think a few came for the lesson. Loyalty without truth is just obedience. Power without humility is just fear with better lighting. And love, real love, does not make an omega smaller, so an alpha can feel strong. It makes both of them brave enough to stand in the light, with nothing forged between them.